Welcome back to the Alone Together podcast where the loners aren't alone. I'm Layla.
I'm Jernei.
And today we have a very special guest with us. As you can see, we're going to get into talking about her nonprofit and the work she's doing in the community and keep this trend going of bringing people on that are doing work right here in LA in the community. So,
yes. Well, she was my professor, Miss Salena Collins. I just needed to have her on the pod the day I met her because her nonprofit, and I was like, wow, my first Black professor at USC is my yoga professor. Never would have thought, really. So I'm so happy to finally have you on. I guess I can read a little bit of your bio since I do have it up. But Miss Salena you grew up in LA?
Near.
yeah, let them know the difference.
Yes,
right.
LA. So if you guys are familiar, literally between 94th, Alpha 94th, between Normandy and Western.
Okay.
It's like they say on the movie Friday. Around here, between Normandy, right there. I'm from LA, born and raised. Whole family is from here. Honestly, never lived anyplace else. Traveled, of course, but this is home for sure.
I feel like people from LA, they don't really want to leave. Everything's here.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you find a way to live here, you might as well just stay, I feel like.
Absolutely, for sure.
But let me read some of this bio real quick. So, since 2012, Salena has been a wellness advocate in her local community in South LA and the Inglewood area. She has dedicated over a decade to the yoga and mindfulness practice. She began practicing at Yoga Works in 2005. Her appreciation for the practice drove her to apply to the Yoga Works 200-hour teacher training program in 2011. And upon completing her training, she launched her first yoga studio in Inglewood, California in 2012. Clear Gardens Yoga Studio became a space for peace and comfort with a mission to serve the community. She then founded the Balance of Life Project, which is her nonprofit, in 2013, a yoga and mindfulness program that serves over 12 schools, grades K through 12 in the LA, Inglewood, and Compton area. And in 2015, she continued her training at Yoga Works, qualifying for the 500-hour certification level. And she has served as a yoga instructor for the following organizations: LA, USD, some other school districts in the area, NBC Universal, the Grammy, Staples Center, Kaiser, a bunch of other ones, Inglewood City Hall, public schools, UCLA, and now USC, of course. And she was featured on Fox News, receiving the Rising Star Award given by City National Bank for her dedication to bringing the yoga or practice of yoga and mindfulness to inner city schools. And she recently completed her yoga therapy certification and is doing that. So, yay, that's awesome. I'm so happy to finally have Black women in yoga in the community. I feel like it's big in LA.
Oh yeah, it's so necessary and so needed. It's funny because when I actually first started and first got my certification, I was the only Black person in my class.
Wow.
And I remember when I first started my work with my schools, a lot of the students within my community, they had no idea what yoga or meditation was. And that's how I really found my sweet spot, because I'm like, yes, they could identify with me. Like, I'm going to these schools teaching these beautiful children, and they're like, oh, you look like my sister, or you look like my mom, or you look like my auntie. So to me, I feel like just in being able to make that connection on top of the service that I'm providing, it was amazing. Because it kind of resonates with them.
Yeah.
I'm not something foreign that's coming into their life, trying to teach them something that's brand new. So it was already like a level of trust established.
That's true.
And then I think back and I'm like, gosh, when I was going to the elementary school over here, like, I didn't even know what yoga was.
Yeah,
I didn't have a clue, never heard of it. But I just remember the first time that I practiced and that feeling that I had.
Facts.
And I was like, I never knew that I could feel this good in my own body.
Right.
Wow.
Well, how old were you when you first practiced?
I was 16.
Oh, wow.
I was 16. So long story short, I found my way to the practice because, okay, granted, I already explained the area where I grew up. But me and my brother, we actually took the bus to school. We went to Palisades High School, which is in Pacific Palisades.
Oh, wow.
So right in between Santa Monica and Malibu.
Yeah. Y'all took the bus all the way up
We
there?
took the bus all the way there.
Wow.
Our bus stop was on Manchester Western, and we would take the bus
That's
every
a
morning
ride.
to school. It was a ride. But every ride, every morning, every afternoon, I could see like the difference between every neighborhood that I'm riding through.
Literally.
So granted, it was uncomfortable once I got there because I'm like, okay, like my school like literally was right off of the beach. And I'm like, this is like nothing like
where I'm from.
Home, but this is possible and I'm here, you know? So, and there clearly was a lot for me to learn. And that's how I was introduced to yoga because my senior year, I got out of school early. You know, you do good in your classes, you kind of get to leave. I decided to walk around in an area or space up there that's known as the Village. And I had my backpack on and everything, me and my best friend. And I walked past this space, and now today I know it was the smell of lavender. But at the time I was like, what is that smell coming from this small little building? Yeah. So I literally walked in there. Crazy part about it, Black girl at the desk.
What?
Hi, Stacy, if you ever see this.
I'm like, what are the odds in the Pacific Palisades?
Is insane, right? The Pacific Palisades, this is 2005, you know. So I'm like, she's like, oh, you guys, your first class is free. Right? And so I'm worried, like, dang, the bus. And no, I got enough time. Put my backpack in the cubby, took my first class. My first teacher, Larry Herlicker, came over at the end of class and was like, have you ever thought about being a yoga teacher?
Your first class?
My first class. And I'm like, no, like, this is my first time ever, you know.
Yeah.
But again, I felt amazing in my body. And I've been practicing ever since. Yeah, but.
That's crazy.
It's insane. It gets crazier. When I opened the yoga studio in Inglewood, my sister and I were doing interviews. So, of course, we're reaching out to beautiful brown yoga meditation teachers. We went through an interview, and I'm sitting across from a lady, and I'm looking at her resume, and I'm like, I don't remember your face, but I'm like, I know your voice. And she's like, you do? I'm like, I know your voice. And then she's like, and I looked down her resume, and I saw Yoga Works Pacific Palisades. And I'm like, you're Stacy. You checked me into my first yoga class.
That's insane.
Wow. Yeah. Life, bro. Exactly. The full circles.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. So how was it like opening your own studio and going from beginner to opening?
It was scary. Fun at the same time. Scary. Being the first yoga studio in the city of Inglewood, so
that's
it was
crazy.
A lot of like pounding the pavement. I mean, like me and my sister, it was like flyers to windshield, you know, like that. Just really getting in the community, letting them know that we were there. It also took a lot of explaining the benefits of yoga because I don't think that information was that accessible at the time. Yeah, and it's crazy because it wasn't that long ago, but then again, when it comes to the wellness industry, it was. Yeah. You know?
Definitely.
So much has changed since then. Yeah. But it was fun. It was a lot to do. We had our cubbies, we had our blankets, our bolsters. Like we really, really did our best in setting it up. But I just have to say, unfortunately, we did close. Yeah. I think I shared that with you guys. Yeah, we ended up having to close. However, being there and in the community, it opened up a lot of doors for me to start my work with the schools.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, like, so growing up in LA and now being able to provide that service in LA, what is it like being able to make a direct impact on the community that you were a part of and grew up in?
It's a beautiful experience. Yeah. I don't know. It warms my heart. I love being a resource for children becoming more familiar with themselves, learning to trust themselves. Because it's interesting, even when we come into adulthood, sometimes we do get into spaces like where we don't trust ourselves or we feel like we don't know. Yeah. And the truth is that we always do. Right. So that's true. I take a lot of joy and satisfaction in helping children know themselves, know who they are, being able to trust themselves, follow their gut, you know, and not get off of that. So hopefully, because, you know, childhood, of course, is where our samskaras or mental impressions are created. So I like the position and the role of helping them establish those positive mental impressions.
Yeah. I feel like this semester I had a class where I had to go teach yoga to an elementary school once a week. And even though it was like they don't know no yoga and they were first graders, so it was like hard to like do real yoga with them. I just kept telling myself like this is really planting the seed. Like I feel like I didn't know what yoga was at that age at all. But to see like even college kids coming and teaching it was like I feel like that would have been so great. And just teaching them like little, nuggets of wisdom. It was cute. I hope they take it with them. But it matters in childhood, the mental impressions.
It does. It really does. And remember, anything can be yoga.
That's true.
So a lot of the times we
That's
think of
true.
yoga as the asana
Mm-hmm.
and the pranayama practice. Are you inhaling through the right nose,
Mhm.
exhaling through the left? Yoga is so
That's
much
true.
bigger than that. And believe it or not, younger children are more connected to practicing that union,
True.
which
That makes
yoga
sense.
means, that union and that connection, more
That's
so
so
than we are as
true.
adults.
I feel like as a kid, it's not so much like on your mind.
Yeah.
So it's kind of easier to go like to meditate
Yeah.
even and to just be like simple, go to the inner child because you're still there.
And kids are very like, they're very in the moment. Like they could
Yes.
have a bad
That's so true.
1 second, then the next second be happy,
It's all
laughing.
good.
So
Right.
Because they're in the moment.
They're very
They're
present.
aware of themselves. But then they also have no filter.
Yeah.
And they're gonna tell you
Right.
how they act, at least for those first 7 years.
My little
They're gonna tell you
brother,
how they feel. They tell you if they're happy.
Mhm.
They tell you if they don't like you.
they'll tell you if you're balding.
Right.
If
Literally.
they'll tell you
Every week
anything.
they were like starting to like catch on to the sequence and they would be like, Warrior 3 is next. And I was like, well, period. At least you know the code. You know what's next. I'm sorry you got a balance, but you're learning. So
Exactly. And at least you know what you like and what you don't like.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
important,
They
too.
loved the little like happy baby, child's pose. It was so cute. But how was it opening your nonprofit? And talk a little bit about like what you do with that.
Well, that kind of it unfolded on its own. My intention initially when I started working with the schools, honestly, I wasn't even thinking nonprofit. I started with Westchester High School. Their basketball team reached out to me, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I could teach them, you know. And then it just kind of became a business within itself. After that, more schools just started reaching out to me, and it's crazy because even though it was established at the time, I didn't turn it into a nonprofit until 2020. Then I decided to go the nonprofit route. Other than that, it was just a straight LLC business.
Yeah.
You know?
Kind of like us. We turned this into an LLC and then now nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah. So very similar.
Yeah.
So you know the walk.
Right.
It's kind of like you just start with this creative idea and it unfolds.
Exactly.
Right. And what do you do with it?
What do I do with the students?
Balance of life.
Oh, so I go to schools within the LA area, and I teach students grades K through 12, meditation, mindfulness, and yoga. Certain schools, for some LAUSD schools, I do like a 10-week program to where the students are focused on implementing the practices themselves. And at the end, they actually get a little certification.
Oh, wow. That's so cute.
Yeah, so they can actually go and if they would like to, I equip them enough to where they feel comfortable to share or even teach someone else that's their age.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost kind of like a pay it forward type of thing.
Yeah.
And I hope that that's what they're doing as they go on. But that's definitely the intention in that style of teaching. And then for other schools, it's kind of just like an ongoing thing. It's not a 10-week program. It's like a weekly yoga, meditation, and mindfulness class.
One of the only places you're going to see like them actually trying to have yoga mindfulness class for their students, especially like inner city students.
Yeah, I agree.
It's
growing, you know.
It is.
It's still a lot of places that it needs to be. And in my opinion, I feel like it should be mandatory.
Me too.
Within the curriculum within our school.
At least mindfulness.
Yeah, it should be mandatory for sure.
I think the stigma has dropped a lot with mental health. A lot of people are more comfortable like talking about it.
Yeah.
But what's the changes you've seen in the industry? Because you've been working in mental health and yoga for so long. So like, what's the biggest shifts you've seen up to recently?
More acceptance of all of the different modalities that are out there. I feel like when I started, it was kind of like ooh, yoga. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? What is Sanskrit? And I'm like, a language?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
you know, like, what do you mean? And there was a lot of fear.
Yeah.
You know, with the chant, are you going to chant? Are you going to do this? You know, I've had that question in so many interviews that I've been in. Like, okay, what are you going to be sharing or teaching? You know, so there is still a lot of misconception.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do feel like over time, a lot of the misconception is actually being broken down.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of it kind of being considered mysterious, I think there's also a lot of misconception in who yoga is for.
Yeah, that part.
You know,
that
who
part.
gets to practice it? Because actually, with it being here, initially it was actually viewed as a luxury.
Yeah. And I'm just even thinking about how you said the first place you saw it was in the Palisades. Like, the people they're targeting for that, who's going to buy a yoga class, like just even little things like that. I feel like it's all systematic.
It is, yeah, and definitely seen as a luxury. So that is another joy that I have, like letting students know, and particularly our people know that this is something you could access on your own.
Right.
It's not nothing that you need no $500 membership for.
Right.
You don't need a heavy Lululemon yoga mat. Like, roll your blanket out, you know. And you can practice and you can get in touch with yourself anywhere.
Yeah. And it's crazy that it's like a luxury because it's like a cultural thing. It started culturally that it's free. But they made it into a luxury.
And $1 billion
America.
business.
I was about to say, made it a business. My close friend went to India this past summer on a Maymester, and it was like a yoga one. And she just did like intense yoga every day. And she was just like, when she was telling us about it, I was like, wow, that's really their life over there.
Yeah.
Like, yoga is their everyday thing, like almost their religion. And over here, it's $30 a class. Like, no, it's never that. It was never supposed to be that.
Never supposed to be that.
Right.
It's something that you should be able to do on your own. And that's kind of how I like to teach my students too.
Yeah.
You don't always have to look for me, you know, like I want you to develop this practice on your own.
Yeah.
Know what your body needs, know what you need, and it's like, take it from there.
Yeah. I feel like in COVID, I got really into yoga more because it just became like a thing I did every day after I finished like my schoolwork. And I would just do it on the carpet in my room, like off a YouTube video. But then when I started to get really into it was when I started to like discover meditation and what that could do. And yeah, that's when I was like, wow, our people need this. And I wish they had a more open mind towards it. But I think it's starting. And I think COVID changed a lot, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I do. It kind of forced us into address certain things about ourselves or within our surroundings that we may have not had the opportunity to address before.
Yeah.
You know, kind of that retreat and pulling back.
Exactly.
And not having any other option but to stay in definitely caused a lot of people, I think, to take a look inward.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
I think that's another reason why people are so like, I guess, afraid of yoga, because it's like slow. It's not like high pace. It's not distracting. Like, you really have to like be with yourself. And maybe some people that's boring, you know, but
yeah, a lot of people, that's their excuse for not liking it. They say like, oh, it's boring.
Right.
But like, that's kind of the point. Like, it's the slowness.
Right. It's the presence.
Yeah.
And it can be scary for some.
It can.
Yeah.
Right. Right. That's you. Literally, now sit with it. I'm going to start saying that. Now sit with it.
And it's scary.
It is.
It can
be. We want to move. We want to keep going.
It's really a self-journey, yoga. And I feel like people overlook that. On our last episode, my homegirl just finished her yoga certification. And she was just saying how much it really changed her life. And like how they taught it from like a completely different standpoint and a trauma-informed standpoint too. So do you like teach from that perspective or like think about that when you're teaching, especially now that you do like yoga therapy and stuff?
I do, however, not when I'm teaching in a group setting. If I've got a one-on-one going on, absolutely. You know, I want to take into account everything that you've been through or experienced, or even what brought you here or what brought you to the mat with me. So yeah, one-on-one for sure. Whether it's one-on-one or in a group setting, you're going to find your way through all those 8 limbs.
Yeah,
no matter which way you come into the practice from. Some people don't practice asana or the poses. They just meditation. Some people don't practice meditation. They start with the yoga asanas and then they find meditation.
Yeah.
And so if you think about the limbs, then you've got, like your yamas, your niyamas, you've got dharana, like all of these limbs till we get to samadhi. And whichever one you enter onto, even if it's, let's say, clean eating for like santosha. Sorry, that's contentment. But like ahimsa, non-harming, if you follow or address any of these principles, then it's going to find its way to you.
That's very true. And like you said, yoga is anything.
It is.
And it's just like in life, like I feel like once you start one thing on your spiritual journey, like, you start eating healthy, and then you're like, well, how is this deeper? Like, how does this really benefit me? And then it just brings you to like different parts of life.
That's so true.
Some people start with svadhyaya or journaling,
that's me.
Yeah, or therapy.
Yep.
That is a form. That's a part of one of the limbs.
True.
It's
not
called therapy.
Yeah.
It's called svadhyaya. Again,
right.
A Sanskrit term, which could sound a little, but that's what it is.
That is so true.
That's really crazy.
So all of these doors are going to open.
Yeah, that is so true. Now that just made me think about like my journey through all of this, and I feel like it started with journaling, then therapy, and then the combination, and then it was meditation for me. I always would do yoga like for fun, but never, it was just like, let me go stretch. But then it became, this is a study, like this is serious. And then when I started taking it at USC, that's when I really started to learn like, this is almost a religion. Like this is a way of life. It's like Buddhism. Like it's like teachings. It's not just the practice. And that's what's so fascinating to me about yoga. Like it's just so much deeper than what is broadcasted all over America.
Absolutely. And if you practice long enough, it's like you'll find that spot for sure.
How do you continue to incorporate yoga into your daily life, being professor, mom, all that?
Well, we just say everything is yoga, right?
Right. That's
washing dishes.
That's true.
That is union. So one of my favorite quotes.
I love that.
That feeds into that is how you do anything is how you do everything.
True.
So I'm intentional with how I do everything. The way, I communicate with my kids or make my bed up, or the way I clean my floor. The way I prepare their meals. And then of course, still, yes, I roll my mat out. They can certainly attest to it. And I'll get on my yoga mat with me and I'll do my asana practice, and I do my meditation practice. Even this morning, like I consciously was like, okay, let me go ahead and listen to my frequency music, So I put on my megahertz and I lit my sage, my pump.
Right.
So this is all of these things are how I incorporate it into my daily life, literally from the time I open and then just try to be mindful too.
Goals.
Yeah, I try to be mindful literally, because there are moments, where I'm like driving, get out of my way.
Right.
Literally.
You guys get in the bed, I'm not above any of the day,
right.
But I'm just mindful.
I was about to use
It's the apology, but when you're mindful, you be noticing it right after. Like I was getting mad at someone in the car the other day, and then I saw them like pull up next to me, and I was like, I'm just kidding, it's fine. Like it's okay.
But I feel like a lot of people, like yoga has helped me be very self-aware.
Yes.
Like very. I actually wrote a paper on this last 2 semesters ago in this yoga class I had about how yoga really helps people be like body conscious and like understand like even like my posture. Like I noticed that more because of yoga, but especially like my communication and my tone, or when I'm getting out of my body or upset with people, I'm like, I really feel it. And I feel like that awareness is really because of my practice.
Absolutely. And that's why we practice, so each day we become more and more and more aware.
Facts. How do you do it with your kids? Do you like invite them to practice with you, or do they just hop in?
Sometimes I do, depending on how they feel. Like let's say if they had like a rough day or something, like you want to do yoga.
Aww.
Do they do
so
it?
Cute.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like trying to take notes when I'm a mom.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And then there's other days where it's moments where it's like, okay, I need it today, and I'll just start doing it, and they will just come in and start practicing.
Wow. The yoga
Goals.
babies. That's so cute.
That is cute. That is really cute. I always have thought about that. Like, how am I going to incorporate that with my kids? Meditation, yoga. Eventually they'll get it. But as a kid, it's like, that might be a little hard, but they'll eventually see me doing it enough to where they'll probably want to do it and grow with the awareness of it.
Exactly. And that goes with everything that you teach children.
Yeah.
You do it first.
Exactly. And it's small things too.
Like, you can't go and say, hey, you guys go pick up your sock and your sock is on the floor.
Right.
You know, so you do it enough and then naturally they're going to do it.
Yeah.
How has it been teaching at USC? Like, how did that come about?
It's been wonderful. I will say that. I love being there. Love my students. And it happened actually, I want to say, a close friend of my sister actually works at SC, and she called my sister and let her know that there was a position open for a yoga teacher. And this was in 2016. And I came for the interview and I did not get it. I went on about my business, kept working with my schools and stuff like that. And 2018, I got a phone call from the director who did my initial interview.
Oh, wow.
And he's not with us anymore, but he said, hi, Salena. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I've got your resume here. I was wondering if you'd like to come in for another interview. Now, this is 2 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you guys remember me? He's like, we never forgot you.
Aww.
We just didn't have we ended up not having the opening.
Oh.
They gave it to someone else that was already on staff. I was like, sure, I'll be there. I came for another interview 2 years later and got it right away.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what did you start then? I didn't know you'd been at USC that long.
I started 2018.
Oh, wow. Just doing like regular yoga?
Yeah, I started with intro to yoga.
Oh.
And then after that, I added a yoga therapy. And then, so yeah, those are my 2 main courses now. And then as of this past semester, I now have 120B added to my list of courses for USC.
Wow. I don't know why I thought you had just started working there like last year. I didn't know you'd been there for some years.
Spring 2018.
Wow. So how has it been? Do you like it there?
I do like it there.
And teaching yoga therapy, how has that been different from like yoga?
Well, yoga therapy is a little bit different because it's more so focusing on yoga from an individual standpoint, right? I remember that when you took the class. And so then Yoga 120A is more so like a collective general yoga class that someone might walk into or decide to take or sign up for. So Yoga 120A, of course, less lecture, more asana practice every time we meet.
Right.
And then with yoga therapy, more lecture so that you kind of have a little bit more time to think and learn more about yourself. And when it comes to pranayama practices and asana practices, what is more fitting for you as an individual person. And to be honest, if I have to say, that is my favorite course. Yeah. Because I kind of get to know my students a little bit more better. Yeah. And I feel like it's more personal.
It is.
And I think that it allows for much more information that the students could take with them into life. Yeah. You know, and really start to apply it.
That's true.
Yeah, because it's like you were saying, like there's so many different modalities. So maybe someone doesn't like, they walk into a typical yoga class and they don't like that, but they could like a different part of the practice and they just don't know about it yet.
Yeah, and yoga therapy addresses all of that, you know, all the different styles. You've got your vinyasa flows, which for some people might be a little bit intense. You know, we go through our yoga nidra, yogic sleep, which, to be quite honest with you, I think every student should implement that practice into their lifestyle. And then you've got, you know, your restorative yoga.
I love that.
And so we do all of those in yoga therapy. And it, again, just really allows for each and every student to find something that is fitting for them.
Right.
As opposed to, okay, I'm just coming in, I got to do a handstand.
Right.
So
do you like practice yoga therapy outside of school, like individual sessions?
I do.
Oh, I want to hear about that.
Yes.
How is that?
So it's interesting because it takes a little bit more time. And just as I mentioned like a few minutes ago, it's more personal.
Right.
So I'll do like an intake form, we figure out the dosha type. If you guys don't know, your dosha is what is responsible for your pretty much your makeup of your physical body, and also is responsible for the way, I don't want to say necessarily personality because there's a lot of things tied into that, like
but
your
like
environment, and things like that, and the way you grow up. But it could be responsible for how you respond to certain situations or circumstances.
Right.
And so for a dosha type, there's actually three. You've got your kapha, which is a combination of earth and water, and kaphas tend to be a little bit more slow and steady, know. And if they're in an imbalanced state, to one extent, more of a rajasic energy, kind of like high up here, anxious or tamasic or low, then they can be more prone to experiencing things like depression. And then you've got your pitta, which is associated, with fire and water. And a pitta dosha could be more prone to acne breakouts or inflammation because it's associated with fire and heat.
Oh, wow.
And then you've got your vata dosha, which is associated with air, so they might experience more of like a dry skin or a roughness, anxiety, because you think airy, you think fall, just kind of think like flighty. Yeah. So a vata dosha could probably benefit from a practice that's like grounding, like a yen yoga, slow pace. Right. So whereas a kapha dosha could probably benefit from more of a vinyasa style, like a pick-me-up type of practice. So when it comes to teaching yoga therapy, just kind of taking that into account. Yeah. Also understanding that sometimes the doshas do like interact, and just trying to help students or clients bring themselves into balance in more ways than one.
It was very medicalized, and it's very like, these are the terms for it, and the only way to fix it is therapy or these pills. So to be able to bring like yoga and traditional practices into that mental health space, I think it could be very useful, especially for Indigenous and Black people that are in this country that don't have like access to mental health, maybe, or don't enjoy the current mental health practices because we weren't included in the research. Like being able to have a different form of it and different language around it could be more useful for us.
Absolutely. I agree. I think when it comes to mental health in the medical field, it's more so approached or looked at for anyone that's experiencing it, more so like a what's wrong with me type of thing. As opposed to what happened.
Exactly.
We always say that on this podcast. It's
literally
crazy. Not what's wrong with me, what happened to me.
Exactly.
Go back there.
Exactly.
Identify your beliefs, identify impressions, and then you can kind of do what's needed, to practice self-care and get on track.
Right. I feel like before I took the yoga therapy class, your class, I didn't know what to like expect. I thought it was literally just going to be like different forms of yoga as therapy, but I did not at all expect it to be the doshas and learning all the other stuff that we learned. And when I was in the class, it just made me think like my first semester at USC, I had to take a GE, and I just took some random GE because I just needed the credit, but it ended up being about Ayurveda, and it like really opened my eyes, and I was so interested in it. And then that point on, it was like every semester I'm taking something about yoga. And then when I took your class, I was like, wow, this reminds me so much of that class, because in the class we learned about doshas and how the different oils and the things that they do in India. And my professor actually studied Ayurveda in India, so he was kind of like an expert on it. So I was just thinking about that right now when you were talking about that, how it's really so much about that. People don't even know what Ayurveda is, I feel like, but just being able to bring it into the yoga therapy practice, like it can really help somebody and open their eyes to, I feel like you don't need to go to a specialist to be able to have therapy. Like you could do it with yoga. You can know your dosha at home and
do it on your own.
Right. I don't think so.
So there is a way that you can actually use your first three. Each of your fingers is also associated with elements of
Oh, wow. No, I did not know this.
Is that why like the different like hand motions matter?
Exactly.
The mudras.
That's why where the mudras come into
Mudras.
place. Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh,
So yeah,
I
see,
remember,
you already know.
I remember you said that in class when you said, I think you said like I'm a kapha dosha, so this finger doesn't feel good for me or something like that.
Yeah. So certain mudras will agitate me.
Yes.
It's funny because I'm like, okay, that's probably what I need to be doing.
I never
Right.
knew that.
I'm practicing the opposite.
Mhm.
I never knew that, but that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Because
right?
certain mudras like are aggravating to me too.
Yeah, I noticed that even now when I meditate and I'll do a certain finger, I'm like, this is so uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yes. But then I just try to sit through it, and obviously it gets less uncomfortable. But literally, wow, that's sit with it.
Right, that's you.
Sit with it.
Yeah.
And okay, so I think last question will be, what do you mean yoga instructor for the Grammys? Like, what was that for? And NBC and all that.
That was actually corporate. And it just was teaching those that worked there and in those spaces,
Wow.
giving them time to relax,
Wow.
time to check in with self, and then go back to their offices and do what they needed to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like yoga. My dream, one of my dream jobs. Yes, my dream job is really to like implement mental health, like things in the corporate level, but I never thought about them having yoga instructors at the corporate office, which makes sense because I know they have yoga rooms at some offices, but that is so cool.
They need it.
They do.
Need it. So
right.
Absolutely, for sure. Find your niche in that space. It's necessary.
Yeah.
It's necessary for everybody.
Right.
I just can't say that enough. Whether it's a student, a kid, or someone in a corporation. It just allows that time for that mental shower and just to check in with self and then propel yourself into the world to do what you need to do and to be the best person that you can be.
Exactly. That is really cool. I never thought about that, but now I'm like, let me find that application.
Right.
Let me reach out to the Grammys.
Just call them up.
Right. I heard you needed an instructor. First, I had to get my certification.
For sure.
Yeah, first I need to get my certification. I'm hoping to do that next semester or next summer, though.
Yay!
Finally.
Have you decided where?
So, like I said, my homegirl on the last episode, she went to the Tree Yoga Cooperative. I think I told you about that studio in South Central. But they do certifications every like season, spring, fall, summer. But I just really like them because it's Black and BIPOC owned. And they do like, they come from the trauma standpoint, and they just teach a lot about like the history of yoga too, I feel like. And it's just really informative. Like when she was talking about her training, I was like, yeah, that's like a holistic standpoint, not just let me drill these asanas and the practice into you. It's really like, let me teach you. Glad we got to have this conversation. It was really
so many gems.
No, for real, and fun. But that will be this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. I think they'll be dropping every month, so January. But thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, lady.
Of course. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.